Okay, carry
So
on.
Joe, my older brother,
Okay.
and his wife died when Elizabeth was turning 13. And the angel window is in memory of her, along with the Hill boy that died and several people. So the angel window was done in their memory.
Oh, wow.
And that neat
When was that done?
is 1992 is when she died, but it was a couple years after that.
And
when
what
they
was her
did it.
full name?
Her name, Julia Ann Fesperman Moore. So,
And she was
but you need to look at the book, because the book explains each of the windows in the Bible verses for. So, yeah.
Okay. I will.
And Harriet Hill would be who you would need to interview if you want to know more specifics.
Got it.
Because she met with the artist, and in fact, they had to be redone because they had not redone. I think, and you need to talk to her because it was the way we were protecting them weren't good enough. So we had to have them, I don't know, it was refurbished and then protected on the outside.
Like resealed?
Yeah.
There's a secondary piece of glass to kind of cover it?
I'm almost sure there is, but you
I
would
can
need
see
to
the
ask.
pane right there.
You would need to ask her,
Okay.
but yeah. So they were amber glass in the old church. I mean, sorry, this church. This church, it was amber. You know what
Okay.
amber is,
Yeah.
right?
So-
So it was just amber glass.
And then they changed it.
Right. Then Harriet led an effort to get them stained glass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was growing up, the church had red floor. The carpet, it was all red in here.
And here it was?
It was red or green, I can't remember, but there
You
was.
sure it wasn't just the runner?
No, it was.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because when I would throw my dad's pocket watch across the thing, it would bounce off the thing.
Oh, okay.
And I could run all the under here.
Okay, so I can tell you when I got married in 1990, that up there was not carpet because we dropped one of the wedding bands
Oh,
and you
no.
could hear it
Oh, really?
echo. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forget. We would do the dog, the blessings of the dog, and my golden retriever was hyper, and she kept on just trying to spladle out on these benches, and she'd fall off. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, but that's another.
And
Okay.
you know the transit's relatively new.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
here when that happened.
Yeah, and you know
The cross is
cross
carried over from that, right?
Yes.
Okay. My mom was married the second time here, the first time there, the third time at our house because she was embarrassed about it.
Tell her not to be embarrassed. She, come on.
I tell her.
Come on. Tell her I'm her age. Come on.
Yeah. These are pretty original, right? They never really changed those.
I don't remember them changing that at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's sit and talk for a second. I want to know a little bit about a pathway.
I got it.
God, it smells so good in here. Oh, the Easter lilies.
I know they stink now.
And my Confederate jasmine right now is really blooming. And by the entrance of our house, it's real pretty. All right. Okay.
So you know, in the old days, this used to be Mr. Becky's office.
No.
Yeah, this was the office, because we didn't have, well, way back, that was the end of the church.
Right, where that door, the pull down
Right.
is.
And he had a secretary, Margaret Smith, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr. Beckwith had 3 services. I mean, we had very little staff.
Wow.
Sunday school was run by
What was
volunteers.
what was the thing? Was this here?
No, not originally.
So what was
So
this?
this is the new building,
Right, everything.
or the newer building.
That's crazy.
Because, you know, and then they opened this up, because you know where you come down the steps, you know, that was the extension of the new building.
Yeah. All I remember coming down is always going down there and making where your All Angels Chapel was. To the left of it was where choir practice was. And there was this lady who was very young, brownish, blondish hair. It came to, I think she came to here. She's really sweet. And she did the young children's choir.
Was it Porter?
It might have been.
Eloise?
She had kind of a little bit of a curved nose, but she was very, very
Okay, so did she play a harp or anything, or bells?
Maybe
Because that
bells.
would have
I
been
think.
Nell, and Nell did bells or harpsichord.
I think a Nell. I think, and this was like, so this would have been in 1990,
Okay.
92 and 93, because I would have been about 6 or 7
Okay,
at the
so,
time.
okay. Well,
So-
the other thing it could have been is Judy. Not Judy.
She had long hair. I remember it was
Okay,
kind of
that
came down,
wouldn't- that
came
wouldn't-
kind of down to here.
That would have been that.
And then when we grew up, we went. Greer Beatty was our choir teacher.
So, okay, yeah, but that was the next choir up.
Right, that was the choir up.
So, Judy Bennett did All Angels, but she was sort of heavy set and short blonde hair. And then after her was Nell Keeley,
Yeah.
and Nell is a music teacher in at least she was in the public schools.
Did she come back to be recognized around Christmas?
Not this time, but now you're talking about Maida.
Okay, because there's
The
somebody.
Christmas pageant, we
Somebody-
dedicated it to her.
Somebody looked very familiar,
And
I
that's another person, if you're interviewing, you need to interview, and she's getting older. So that's the problem. Some of the stories, that's why I was asking Audrey, you know, what do you remember so we can sort of put this together? Because
Yeah.
Audrey's older than I am, so she would have a different perspective. And my sister Betty Clark is in Connecticut, and I called her because Greg was calling me, and I'm like, Betty, what do you remember? Because she's 6 years older, so she would have more of a perspective. And Joe, my brother, who's 9 years older than me, he was one of the first acolytes in the service. And Smee York, I think, was the crucifer.
Yes, right. Yeah.
But he was one of the acolytes,
So would your brother have been brought in 63, 64?
something like that.
Yeah, so he would have, when my mom was at Broughton, Pistol Pete was there.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
so-
exactly right.
And so she was like 67, 68, and then
Wait a minute, high school.
high school. And then you,
Because I think he graduated from college in 64 and 65. Because
Yeah,
I
so-
graduated in high school in 69.
I know he went to Sandhills for a year.
Okay.
And that's what my mom would always tell me, is they both went down to Sandhills for a year.
So when your mother must have graduated from high school, what, 67?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm 69. Joe would have been like 60.
Yeah, and she had a brother named Robin Cawthon, who was the valet. He was like really smart, but he was also the manager of the football team.
So did he went to Broughton though?
Yeah,
So Joe was at Broughton,
yeah,
but he was not a football anything.
yeah. Robin wasn't either. He was a nerd. He was
Well, I'm not even sure Joe was a nerd.
Robin definitely was a nerd.
Well, see, my dad started Joe Moore and Company in the 50s or the late 40s. And so Joe immediately was put to work. So I'm not sure how much of any of the extracurricular anything Joe got to do except go to school and come back.
Gotcha.
And see, when my baby sister was born, who's April 4.5 years later from me, we lived on Banbury in a duplex in 2 bedrooms.
Wow,
And Mom was bedridden.
wow.
So I'm probably saying too much, but
Yeah, that's fine.
what
I'll
happened
put
is when they moved from Portsmouth, she almost died with my older sister.
Oh wow.
In fact, she was even given the last rites by the nuns. Anyway, so they came to Raleigh. She was told by the OB, don't have any more children. Well, they still wanted children, so they went to Dr. Brannaman here, and he said, I don't see any reason you can't. So she got pregnant with me and ended up in bed. And then she got pregnant with Francis, ended up in bed. And then in bed with Kathy, who's the baby. But each one of those, so Joe, my brother, he was either working or taking care of us.
Wow,
I know.
that's crazy.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
Yeah. So he started his business with 5 children, and then he then started building our house on Riddick Drive and went into business. I don't know. Mother must have been a saint to support it. Of course, I'm sure she wanted it.
Was that where you said your mother was bedridden quite often? What when she got out of being bedridden and your dad was building the house on Riddick?
Yeah, so they built the house on Riddick when Kathy was a baby, which would have been 1956.
Okay.
Because we didn't have electricity to start off with, so I would go to the neighbors and ask, that's how the neighbors, could I heat my baby sister's bottle?
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exactly when my grandparents built the house on Churchill, was in 56.
Oh, okay.
So they bought that land from Smedes York. And no, who was it? It was either the guy that owned Car Drugs, Banks Car.
Okay.
But
that's, Woody Carr,
Yeah.
Woody, Deborah.
Yeah, Deborah.
Uh-huh.
And
Debbie. Yeah.
they my grandfather was an architect in Raleigh.
Okay.
And so he worked for the FHA and would approve a lot of the houses and stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
Well, then he probably had to approve whatever, because Dad designed it and
Yeah.
built it.
so your dad was a designer too.
No, he went in because he couldn't go into the service during the war because
Yeah.
he had, it wasn't diabetes, but he spilled sugar, so they refused him. So he ended up in the Navy Yard, and that's where he picked up the boiler making, the boiler tubes and the refractory and all that. And then he came out of the Navy Yard and went to work with Adlin Thomas Company, and they sent him to North Carolina to be a sales area and do jobs in North Carolina.
Oh wow.
And so the story I was told, now Joe may be told, he went to the doctor and he had stomach issues, and the doctor said, you need to de-stress. He went and talked to Holden at First Citizens, and Dylan basically gave him a guarantee, or whatever you do, sign,
Yeah.
and he started his own business.
Wow.
Talk about going out on a limb. And then the reason he's on Riddick is now I've gone blank. Debbie and he was a big Beaver. Beaver was his name. Beaver. And Jeanette Ellis. They came from Portsmouth, and they live on Lakeview. And so they, as a group, were trying to control who was on the land and who was buying what lots.
Oh.
So they talked Mom and Dad into buying basically 2 lots in that area
Wow.
to develop, because they wanted the right neighbors.
Right.
So anyway, so that's why they ended up where they were.
Help me with Riddick. Is that going towards Lacey? I feel like.
No, if you go, do you know St. Mary's and
Yeah.
St. Mary's Extension
Yeah.
becomes Laster Mill.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you go across St. Mary's and go across Glenwood,
Yeah,
and you
carry
do
on.
that snake thing.
Right.
And you head down, and as you get ready to go down the hill, there's a
Right.
street on the left, Riddick, and there's a street on the right, Lakeview.
Okay. This is behind Carolina Country Club.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But
yeah.
a
And
street
there's dammed.
over.
It's dammed up. There's a lake back there that's dammed, or the lake or the pond. There's a big. I've driven back there and I've
You
seen
mean
it.
Laster Mill?
Well, no, before Lassiter Mill, way before Lassiter Mill. If you're going down the hill and Carolina Country Club's here on your left.
Oh, yeah. It's the land that they've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got the fence around it.
There's a fence, and then there's a dam. There's some kind of
They
dam
built-
built
yeah.
a structure,
Yeah.
a
yeah.
brick wall
Yeah.
of some sort.
And then these
that's where- that's area.
monstrous homes
Yeah.
on the back, yeah, or backing up to the water.
Yeah, that's where William Poole's. A friend of mine from high school. I just went over to get a big slab of the bowling alley from him, and he lived back there. And I said,
Oh, okay.
It's beautiful back there.
Yeah.
It's really
yeah.
a hidden spot.
Yeah.
Um,
So Lakeview, so Riddick deads in to Lakeview. I said Lakeview. On the other side is Toxie. So
Okay.
it's Toxie on one side and Riddick on the other. And then I cannot remember for the life of me who. There's an architect that lived on Toxie that designed Mother and Dad's second house.
Wilbur Smith, Owen Smith.
No,
Was it a modern house?
no,
It wasn't modern.
no.
So it wasn't.
So what happened was when Joe and Julie, my brother, were living on Rothgate, and they were in a little teeny tiny house, and they had 3 children, and they wanted to move, but they wanted to be in the right school district. So they couldn't find a house that they liked. So Julie sat down with my dad and basically talked him into building a retirement home on what we call the dog lot.
Okay.
Because what they did is they took 2 lots and they didn't put the house on one whole lot. They sort of moved it. So they squeezed a second house on what we call the dog lot, and where we had a doll house. But the doll house is a real...
It's an honest-to-God house.
It's a big... Well, it's not. But, I mean, it's like a one-bedroom house if you wanted to make it into a house.
Wow.
But Dad did that. You know, so we got half the house to play in, and he had his tools in the other half.
That's kind of cool.
It is cool.
Tell me what it was like growing up in Raleigh at that time.
I guess very privileged.
Yeah.
We were in our own little circle, went to out at Root and
Yeah.
had our buddies on Granville and Pasquotank, and you know, it's just your Girl Scouts were there
Yeah.
and your friends were there, and you know, it was very much
Would you-
sleepovers, very safe, very, you know, we didn't have bus. The bus didn't come, but to a certain point on St. Mary's, the
Wow.
bus stopped. So beyond, like, it took forever to get the bus to even Riddick Drive.
In the summers, what would you do for fun?
Play outside.
Really?
Now,
Would
my
you-
sisters went to camp, but I was
Okay.
a homebody. I went one time and cried my heart out and never went back.
Did you go down to Lassiter's Mill much?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Was that a?
Yeah, now I was a scaredy cat, so it wasn't like
You weren't
I
jumping in
wasn't
the
one
water?
of the ones that was going to jump off the dam and
Oh,
all
really?
that kind of stuff. And you know, they cleaned a lot of that up.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Too bad the road's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no,
but when I grew up, the road actually came through
wow.
across the bridge.
Was it? Do you remember the movie theater going up in North Hills?
Well, we went there.
You did.
That
yeah,
was
this
one
way,
of the things.
well
You
after
talk
your time.
about one thing we did. That was a
Was it
Saturday.
called the Cardinal?
Yes.
Yeah, the Cardinal.
Saturday morning, Mom, there were 3 of us. So my older sister and brother, of course, were older. So basically Saturday morning was drop us off at the movie theater, give us money for popcorn and a drink, and we had she had her babysitter for the morning.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember when they did the, time capsule?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when North Hills, there was the first shooting thing.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
And then when North Hills had IVs and all that, yeah.
They had to take.
And then it became dead until
Yeah.
Kane got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Cameron Village, which is no longer Cameron, but anyway,
Yeah.
Village, and how there was I'm going to say high-end, which probably wasn't, nice shops.
Did you ever go to the German festival in Cameron Village when
The what
the
fest-
German festival where they would wear?
If I did, I don't remember.
Everybody wore green hats and they would block off near Now's Road. And,
Now, there was, something underground I would go
oh
to.
yeah, you went to the what?
Yeah.
You went to the underground place.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But now when I learned how to drive, there was a circumference that we could drive. So Dad, we couldn't go on the other side. So you couldn't go on Wake Forest Road, and you couldn't go. There was a point on Oberlin that you could. So essentially, at Johnson's Pharmacy, I was capped out. So there was like a space that we were not allowed to go. And you have to realize, and I got to be careful.
Yeah.
Integration was happening.
Right.
Okay. And so with us, our grade at Daniels, and I can't remember which grade, they decided to integrate.
Yeah.
But what they did is they took the select,
Yeah.
smart African American black
Right.
children and brought them to Daniels.
Yeah.
And
Sherwood
the Landon
Bates.
Moores
Sherwood Bates, right?
the Landon Moores of the world hated it because if there was any curve to be, because I don't know how much you knew him, but he was not a student.
No, he was an athlete.
He was not a student. And so, I mean, the curve, he's down here, and now you've brought in some really smart,
Yeah.
it killed his curve. You know, of course, he was a basketball,
Yeah.
football, hero.
It's crazy to think of Landon Moore. The Landon Moore I grew up with was always at the ticket intermission line at Broughton beside Jack Spain, and they would. He was more heavy set in his later.
Well,
part.
Landon was a lost soul. I mean, I don't know, is that thing on?
I can turn it on. This is confidential.
So Landon was a lost soul. He married Deborah, I mean, okay, we grew up together. So him and Lee Thornburg, Diane White, all of us just hung out together. And, they played sports and the girls watched and,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. Well, he and Deborah got married, Deborah Johnson, so
Yeah.
Johnson Pharmacy. They got married, and he had a side habit of gambling.
Oh.
Now, I will say it benefited her because they couldn't afford the washer and dryer and stuff on her working a little bit she worked
Right.
and what he was doing. And
Right.
he was working for White Quarles.
Yeah.
And now Joe Moore, his brother, was like super successful, Mr. Do Right and all
Right.
that. And of course, Landon just frustrated him
Sure.
because he just could not. He was a nice guy, do not get me wrong.
No, I get you. I understand.
But I got, this is really confidential.
Well, let
So-
me pause it. Let me pause it.
Yeah, do. So Deborah and I, so the twins and I grew up from kindergarten. I told you that.
Okay, back on the record. I have a question. When did you meet Stella?
Stella,
Yeah.
when Anna was in the 2-year-old class, my Anna. So my Anna is 1992. So it'll be 1994.
And you had been in teaching Sunday school how long at that point?
So I was approximately 12 when I started, so that would make it 1984. And I took a little bit of a break when I had Anna. So, I took like 2 or 3 years off.
When you see those younger girls in here that are 12 years old helping in Sunday school, do you feel a little bit of an assimilation or a kindred spirit because you too were at that age?
Yeah, somewhat, except the difference is I was sort of like, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it is similar because I'd already been sort of helping mom a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think the girls these days
Mhm.
are nearly as
Active?
mature.
Yeah.
Or,
Or-
now mine, here I'm going to sound really whatever. Mine and Stella's, those, Anna and Emily are my two,
Mhm.
and Stella's is Vera and Elizabeth. From the day that they were not Emmy's age, but maybe 8,
Mm-hmm.
they immediately were in the classroom. It's sort of like what's happening with Elizabeth's child, Charlotte, because
Gotcha.
she gets dropped off with me some Sundays. So she already is getting into setting the table. She knows it's time to do snack.
Right.
So when I decided that I was a choir dropout, I already was sort of in the swing of knowing how to do it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas the girls come in, they're new.
They're not really cued.
No.
No. Did you have somebody in your life that was a choir that was very matter of fact? This is how we do it. We set it up this way. Or do you think that was necessarily your nature as a CPA to be have all your ducks in a row and make sure everything's done this way?
I would say, if anything, it was probably Miss D's.
Really?
Because Miss D's, and we say about Bill Duff and Sawyer Manley, they knew if you could interview Bill, he would tell you he knew all the books of the Bible, he knew the Lord's Prayer, he knew the Lord is my shepherd, because she was so strict in chapel. If you misbehaved, you were up there quoting out of the Bible. You were learning the Bible. That was your, quote, punishment. So I think this is the way you respect the church. This is what we do in the Episcopal Church. That set me in motion for, we do need structure.
Yeah. Now,
We do need structure. Other than that would have been mother, but not really.
not really.
So I think it's probably more me.
Really?
But with Miss D's, of course.
You do one thing that's really sweet that we really love is that you send stickers in the mail and cards for every.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I wanted to know, when did that start? When did you start doing that?
Shannon McFadgen, she's probably turning 50. She brought the card I sent her in because her little boy's probably 12 now. And when
Okay.
I had him, she showed me the card her mother had saved. So she's 50,
Wow.
so at least 40 some years. Now, I didn't always do stickers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Wow, you've been doing that
Forever.
That's a really sweet
So
gesture.
Matt Bush, this is my niece,
Hey,
Elizabeth.
how are you?
Hey. Well, you really have the whole family here. Okay, so let's walk back to Stella. So you were in 2-year-old class. Both of you you had both children were about 2 years old in the 2-year-old class. You run into Stella.
Well, no. She was teaching my child,
She was teaching your child. So Stella was teaching your child,
teaching the 2-year-olds.
and you were in the other class teaching the 4-year-olds.
I'm not sure at that point I had started back.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I probably had.
How did y'all just become?
So what happened was, so she would laugh because Elizabeth Catherine, so she's 18 months older than Catherine, and then Joe Forrest is 2 years younger than Catherine. And they would go to Sunday school. So my mom and my brother would bring their 3 to church. And after church, we would go to K&W. Those 3 would come running down the hall and do a slide into Stella's room to see who could pick up Anna first. Okay. And of course, you know my rule was no child is supposed to pick up a child.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what we ended up doing is we would be going out to lunch, K&W or whatever, and we started going out. We ended up in K&W together.
Oh.
So
Wow.
then we just developed a friendship.
And just went off from there.
Yeah, and then again, I can't remember. So I was on the Christian Ed Committee forever, and Priscilla Late was the DRE before Stella. And so I would have been working closely with Stella on like the curriculum and all that kind of stuff.
Speaking of curriculum and all that kind of stuff, do you? Is there any moment in particular that you truly enjoyed teaching or in Sunday school with 4-year-olds, or is
Okay, to begin with, let me just correct you. It's
Yeah.
3's turning 4.
3's turning 4s? Thank
So
you.
they're 3.
Thank you for
September
correction.
1. Yeah.
There's been a lot of corrections. You're not the only one. So is there any moment in time in teaching here that you really was a very memorable moment that really meant a lot to you?
So, this is probably going to sound selfish, but 2 things. It's probably seeing my 2 girls be acolytes together in All Angels, because I see that as legacy going on. Also, Elizabeth's got Charlotte, who's now 8, and Henry's 5. That's another memorable. And when they celebrate their birthdays.
Elizabeth, your niece, who just
Yes.
walked by. That
Yeah,
would
so
make
I'm
that would
sorta
make
like
her
their
children your great.
niece
Nieces,
and nephew.
niece and
But
nephew.
see, they lost their grandmother.
Oh,
So I'm Pap.
oh,
So
I
I
understand.
am sort of their,
Grandmother.
well, be careful, don't publish that.
I
It's
won't.
my brother.
Yeah.
So, as her brother says, who now has a 20-month-old and a newborn, I'm as close to a grandmother as they're going to have on my brother's side.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah. So that is special to me because I'm seeing my own family embrace the legacy that we have, I don't want to say struggled to keep,
Yeah.
but make sure it keeps happening.
Yeah. A lot of
'Cause, I
people
mean,
aren't coming to church.
Because you see, volunteers are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And when you look at All Angels, you have, we were counting the other day, about 10, maybe 8 people that have maybe 15 years each
Hmm.
that are in All Angels.
Yeah.
And they're the backbone that are keeping it going. It's not just Patty. Diane Garner at the organ, and Eric, and
Yeah.
Meg, and Bob, and Linda.
Yeah.
All those people are what's making it. And the classroom's special, but to me, the chapel's what makes it different.
Yeah.
And if I had my way, kids would be in chapel a whole lot longer than 3rd grade.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because even with mine, it'd be like, gosh, how many coloring books can we bring?
Agreed. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And maybe, because Stella and I also have gone to Christian formation conferences in Canoga
Hmm.
in summertime. and we would take our kids. And that's a wonderful, wonderful experience, because the first time I took mine, you know, she said, you don't have to worry about safety. Bring your bicycles. They can ride the campus. Have you ever been to Canoga?
No.
It's outside Hendersonville. It's gorgeous. It's
Really?
gorgeous. Anyway, so we went, and then she said, don't worry about it. The dinner bell rings. The kids come. And my little Emily didn't show up. And she didn't show up. She didn't show up. And my little Emily can find her way, you know, going from to classroom to the office at school. I'd get told, we lost Emily. She took a detour all the way around the school today. I'm like, yep, that's Emily. So anyway.
How old is Emily right now?
She is now 30.
Okay, carry on.
So she just turned 31. So what she had done is she had ridden her bike into like a center part, and she couldn't figure out how to get her bike down another path, and all she saw were steps. So she was sort of stuck in the center of the conference center and just couldn't get herself to where the cafeteria was.
Oh.
So, I mean, she wasn't crying.
Yeah.
She just was, I was more of a panic than her.
Yeah.
But Canoga is just wonderful.
Wow.
I mean, they have the camp and everything essentially for the kids while we were in class.
What do you think separates St. Michael's from another church?
Children's Chapel.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. The actual chapel, other churches have something, but they don't have as much, if you know what I'm saying.
I do. I love the puppets and the way they relate it to children.
Oh, yeah.
It really brings it back to almost Sesame Street almost.
Yes. You mean actually, hey, Claire.
Yeah. So I guess my last question for you would be, what do you think it would need to happen to carry on your legacy? Like, what do you do see your own family as a legacy in your children, but what do you think will need to happen for this to carry on to?
We need Matt, and we need Elizabeth, and we need somebody else that has the inspiration or the oomph to want to do it.
Really?
That's what
People.
we need.
Yeah.
But you got to have devoted people. You got to have, so one of the things I think we have is and be careful if you print it, we have volunteers that want to show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not babysitting.
Right.
So when you look at what I do, I study and I'm ready to prepare for that Sunday. And the chapel leaders, look at the job they have. They've got to really embrace that story and know it. They can't be reading anything per se,
Yeah.
you know, but they love it enough to put the effort in it and make it inspirational for those children.
Wow.
So that's what we need. We need the dedicated. Now, you know, we got Elizabeth, you know, but she can't be a one-man show.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
even though
think
Miss
you're right.
Dees was a one-man show.
For me, my Miss D's was Mr. Morrison, who would bring the baseball cards and the Jolly Ranchers.
Okay.
And so that was just wonderful. But that was right. That was a different time. I mean, that was the older age. I think we were in 13 years. We were closer to the.
Well, Morton would have been in Beckwith.
Yeah.
With George
Yeah.
Sherman.
That's right. Yeah. So that was fun. I don't know why that in particular, just the idea of giving a baseball card if you learned a fact or something. And as a child, you really covet baseball cards. And so.
Well, I think it's any kind of reward.
Yeah, and I think it was an assimilation with children too.
Probably.
You know, they knew kind
Well,
of.
and I think too, you know, that's what we've all been trying to figure out. How do you get people here more than 1 or 2 Sundays a month?
Right.
Because way back yonder, because Eric Nehus is one of the organists, and she said he one summer Sunday I was up in Big Church 20-some years ago, I guess 20 years ago, something like that, and he happened to be there with his 3-year-old, and I introduced him, and I said, oh, I'm going to have her in Sunday school. Well, lo and behold, he can play a piano. So he's been playing the organ for us. But he was asking me Sunday, he said, how many children? I had one child Sunday. And he said, how many children do you have? And I said, I have 23 on the roll, but the cap we've had is 14. It's normally about 10. And he said, well, that's a whole lot different. And I said, yeah, we used to have 20 a Sunday. So even the base isn't as big. So I think, and this is me, I think that the church has gotten older and there are more older people being brought in because the choir's busting, the adult choir. And if you look in the congregation, there are a lot more people my hair.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, what is it that
We'll draw the
that
younger.
will draw your age in more so and make it more of a priority? Because I know, I mean, you know, Elizabeth, when Matt's out of town all week, you know, he travels all the time. A lot of Sundays it's like, well, that's our only day to go goof off with Matt. Her husband Matt.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's other things, whereas in my era, and Stella's, with our kids, Anna and Emily, Sunday morning, we're going.
Right.
You got to be sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I totally
You
get
know.
it. For me,
But,
it's just
hey,
yeah.
but it wasn't, everybody didn't do every Sunday.
Right.
But it was more, you had more of a percentage doing 3 Sundays
Right. Yeah.
on an average 3 Sundays.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make you feel
No, it's
guilty.
okay. I'm a big bluegrass fan, so I love bluegrass. So I went to Merle Fest, and if I go to Merle Fest, it's the one day of the entire year as a school teacher I take off on Friday to go
Okay.
down to Merle Fest up in Wilkesboro and play bluegrass music.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So I'm definitely going to be here this Sunday.
Well, good, because I have something special.
Do you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'll be excited.
Well, it's for her, but you'll like it.
Okay, cool. I'm excited
like
about
it.
that. Well,
I used to on Mother's Day do a Mother's Day card that's special. And in fact, Bo Nicholson was there one Sunday when we were taking pictures. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it's supposed to be a surprise." I said, "And it used to be for Mother's Day." I said, "But there's so many of you dads bringing children by yourselves now.
Yeah.
I forget the Mother's Day. I
Well-
want to do something different."
It's just, I think it's most of the dads, we grew up going to church. And like, I mean, my wife, she didn't necessarily grow up going to church, but I did. This is my assimilation this is my connection to my grandmother. And so that's why every time I walk through these halls, I was a fat little chubby kid eating pancakes for a Fat Tuesday, and loving those big fat sausage links. And,
Yeah.
And just going.
But that's the other thing you ask about during the pandemic, and even before, we kept Shrove Tuesday, but we didn't do children's events, and that's another thing. They're finally doing that.
Yeah.
David's finally doing
coming
that.
back. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean trunk or treat. I mean, Vacation Bible School needs to happen,
Yeah.
and Shrove Tuesday to happen.
How old do
But
you have to be for VBS?
I think it's just 3. She
Okay,
can
so Emmy
come.
could come.
Yeah, she
Okay.
can come.
I like that idea.
She can come.
Okay, we'll do that.
And it's a fun week.
I'll take it. We pay for her to go to a daycare during the week. I'm willing to take her out of daycare, and so I've been trying to find things to do with her this summer, because that's the beauty of being a teacher, is you get your time with your children.
Yeah.
So that's what I really love.
So when do you get off though?
June 15th. June 15th. When
Okay.
is this Vacation Bible School?
I think it's the last week.
Oh, there it is.
There it is,
There it is.
August.
August.
'Cause
Oh,
we're
the
at
4th
beach.
through the 8th. My
We're at
birthday's
the-
on the 8th. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be fun. I'll definitely bring her for that. Well, I want to.
That is a contradiction.
What?
You dress like that is that prayer books or Bibles?
These are hymnals as well.
Oh, hymnals.
We're all going to join in song out there
Oh, we're gonna sing?
while we're holding the tablecloths
Well,
down
hey.
with all of
What are you
these.
doing?
Well, that's good. I can make a joyful noise.
Joyful
Can't read the
noise?
note.
Whoa. Can I record that? Can I record you saying I can make a joyful noise?
You just come on downstairs one Sunday and you'll hear me.
I'll bet.
Did you reference
I
the
told you.
contradiction of because of the Bibles and his shirt?
Yes.
I think you're
I
right.
thought that was really funny. I don't think he called it.
That's